Hello, everyone. I'm Major Garrett in Washington. Welcome to America Decides. Some of President-elect Trump's cabinet picks are, as you might expect, back on Capitol Hill this week, continuing their quest for Senate support as they can put it together ahead of confirmation hearings early next year. Today saw Defense Secretary pick Pete Hegseth, pick for Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, and Kash Patel, who has been selected to lead the FBI, though we should point out there is no current vacancy at the top of that law enforcement agency, but there very well may be in the not too distant future. Of course, what's key about these meetings is not that they are happening, but the approach potential cabinet members are taking as they shift positions in order to seal the deal. That includes Hegseth and his stance on women in the military. This is how Hegseth described it on Fox News last night.
Some of our greatest warriors, our best warriors out there are women who serve. I look forward to being a secretary for all our warriors, men and women.
We start tonight with Scott MacFarlane on Capitol Hill, and a big part of his attention has been devoted to those named by President-elect Trump to cabinet positions in the incoming administration. Let's lay down some foundational truths. Most presidents get the nominees they've selected. The Senate confirmation process can sometimes be turbulent, but more often than not, it works out in the president's favor. But Turbulence Watch is an important part of this story. So, how does Pete Hegseth stand this week on the Turbulence Index? Scott?
There's indication things are stabilizing. Some indications of that. He concluded his afternoon here with a meeting with the more moderate Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, who has a history of defying Donald Trump on key votes. But most of what he's done here over the past 24 to 48 hours is try to resuscitate what had been a listing candidacy. He made some progress with Joni Ernst, the former service member, the Iowa senator who has distinctive heft on issues involving the military. Ernst has said now she will support him through the process. She stopped short of saying she'd vote for Pete Hegseth, but a more supportive statement than she was giving last week when she said simply that they had a meeting and that the meeting was productive. Lindsey Graham of South Carolina also spoke to CBS News today, saying Pete Hegseth seems to be on a good trajectory now. He also said if allegations against Hegseth remain anonymous, they will not be a deal breaker with Republicans at confirmation hearings. Take a listen to more of what Lindsey Graham had to say. Your statement about Pete Hegseth, anonymous complaints.
Nobody should be tried by anonymous complaints, no matter what party you're in.
Is that a line in the sand for you?
Yeah, I think it should be a line in the sand for every American, that you need to come forward and the person being accused of something has a chance to confront their accuser.
So Pete Hegseth is situated better than he was a week ago when he was answering questions about those allegations of alcohol abuse and sexual misconduct, which he has denied unequivocally. But Major, you know this better than anybody. There's a long time till those confirmation hearings. They are 4 or 5 weeks away minimum, and this thing is just getting started.
Speaking of just getting started, Tulsi Gabbard is just getting started in her process of meeting and greeting senators. She has been selected by President-elect Trump to be the incoming director of National Intelligence. Any early read on that?
So far, she has met with the most loyal, potentially, of the Trump allies in the Republican Senate conference. I mean, she is meeting with those who have no history of defying Donald Trump on big things. So the early read is difficult to get because she's yet to meet with those who may be dissenting voices, yet to meet with any of the Democrats, and yet to meet with those moderate Republicans who've defied Trump in the past. We've been questioning Gabbard as she's walked these hallways about her previous visit with ousted Syrian leader Assad, about her criticism she's getting from fellow House members, or former fellow House members, that she echoes Putin's talking points or Russian talking points. She really has not addressed those questions head on. Let's see what she says after she meets with those senators who are not always such devotees to President-elect Trump.
And very quickly, Scott, next week, RFK Jr. will come up to the Senate, true?
Yeah, the latest reporting is he'll take his first set of meetings here next week before the Senate breaks for the holiday. It is noteworthy, isn't it, Major, that 3 of the most turbulent picks, to use your term, Tulsi Gabbard, Kash Patel, the would-be FBI director, and Pete Hegseth are all here at once, which really does dilute the impact of each. We'll see if RFK Jr. is here on his own, or if his presence is diluted as well.
Scott MacFarlane on Capitol Hill. Our thanks as always.
Thank you.
All right, O'Keefe joins us now from West Palm Beach, Florida. Ed, always good to see you as the sun begins to set there. How does the Trump transition team feel about how things are positioned with Pete Hegseth this week as compared to last?
They feel far more confident about his chances at this point, Major, most especially the president-elect himself and the public statements he's made over the weekend and in the days since, suggesting that Hegseth is holding on, demonstrating a will to fight, and has clarified a few things. I think that interview with Fox last night and the fact that he went out of his way to suggest he has no issue with women in combat means he's been listening to the concerned Republican senators that had been speaking with him, not only about his past public statements about whether or not women should be in combat, but perhaps on broader issues regarding sexual assault in the ranks. Joni Ernst really does seem to have had an influence on him, given the statement that she put out that suggested he understood the value of men and women in uniform and then would be working on trying to curb sexual assault in the ranks. She herself, the first female combat veteran to serve in the Senate, and has said she was a victim and survivor of sexual assault. So if that was the biggest stumbling block when it comes to Hegseth so far, they've cleared it. We'll see whether other Republicans have broader issues with his qualifications or his background, his ability to run such a complex, vast organization. But with 6 weeks to go, for now at least, Ernst has taken the spotlight off of her by signaling that she's fine with him continuing, at least for now.
And Ed, I find it fascinating how you phrase that. And I wonder if, from your vantage point, you think that Pete Hegseth's stature and trajectory is kind of a prism for other potentially difficult confirmation battles facing the Trump transition. And here's what I mean. Pete Hegseth, as you said, has clarified or revised previous comments he made about women in combat roles, or what his level of sensitivity to sexual assault in the military was. And the prism, I wonder, is many of those nominated by President-elect Trump have previous statements that are very aggressive, and they go into these things saying, we're going to make the bureaucracies bend to our will because we have a mandate and we have the American public behind President-elect Trump, et cetera, et cetera. Then they meet the senators, and the Senate begins to enforce its will. The advise and consent process begins to shape them in different ways. That's how this works, but I think it's interesting with the aggressiveness that President-elect Trump's picks sometimes have, coming with the counter-aggressiveness of the Senate confirmation process.
Which is why it's going to be really difficult for skeptics to believe either side, right?
Right.
Can you believe Pete Hegseth when he says he's not going to have issue with this? Not necessarily, because, you know, even the president-elect said it himself in that NBC interview on Sunday. I can tell you one thing now, but you know politicians will turn around and do something else later. He's not wrong about that. The other example from the last 24 hours or so was when Kash Patel, the FBI pick, went to see John Cornyn, the Senate Judiciary Committee member. He was asked by reporters, well, what did he say to you about blowing up the FBI or not, you know, rearranging it?
Right.
And Cornyn walked out and said, well, I think if you were to talk to him, you would understand it was just conjecture. Well, fine, but that means that it took conjecture to get the attention of the president-elect, not some professional background in the subject matter that you would oversee, not some professional experience or lived experience that qualifies you for it. It was simply Trump saw you on TV saying some interesting things, and he put you at the top of the pile. And the Senate, as you said, will spend the next several weeks trying to mold and shape these nominees to their liking. If they got issues with them, one or two or maybe three of these aren't going to make it. And that's standard. That's about average. Obama had this issue, Trump 1 had this issue, Biden had this issue, and Trump 2 inevitably will too.
Ed O'Keefe, as always, thank you very much.